So my name is Jim. I'm a product manager on the visualization team. We do all the vizzes in Tableau. I'm really excited to be here. All right, let's do a few administrative things, and then we'll really get started. Now, if you walk out of this session today, you're like, man, that was so awesome. Jim just knocked it out of the park. I hope you say that. Tell all your friends, spread the word, because we're doing this all over again tomorrow, 10:15 in the morning. And because we're going to be covering a lot of different concepts, there's a lot of things we're going to talk about. If you want to dive deeper, if you want to continue your education on some of the things we're going to talk about today, I definitely recommend these two sessions here. In Bar, Bubble, and Donut, Melinda is going to walk you through all of the different considerations that go into choosing the right viz for what you're trying to accomplish. And in Freakalytics, two of our Zen masters, Chris and Rob, they're going to walk you through their entire analytical process, starting from how they germinate the question, to acquiring the data and wrangling it, and finally to answering that question with Tableau. Both are going to be great sessions. Highly encourage you to go to them. All right, let's really get started now. So we're here today to talk about making this leap from Excel to Tableau. And I want to recognize that it can be quite daunting to go from knowing virtually how to do everything with Excel to having to start fresh all over again with Tableau. I know that was true for me when I started my own Tableau journey just last year. And when I was first getting started, I was already pretty decent with Excel. I was pretty proficient. So while I was learning Tableau, I just kept banging my head against the wall, right? Trying to find those direct analogs for the things I used to do in Excel. I'm like, where's Tableau's version of VLOOKUP? How do I reference this particular row of data, right? And it took me a while to recognize that it's not about finding those direct analogs. It's not about doing the exact same thing that I was doing in Excel, only in Tableau instead. Now, it finally dawned on me that both applications have their own strengths and merits, and that I should really be using both for what they are individually great at. Now, we're here at Tableau Conference 2018, right? Am I right? Last time I checked. So that might sound kind of strange to you, because I'm standing up here on this stage telling everybody here to go and use Excel, right? But here's the thing. I would argue that Excel and Tableau, they're like this really weird combination, but they actually work really well together. They're kind of like, I don't know, like, peanut butter and bacon, popcorn marshmallows, Bill Gates and Shaq. I mean, these are really weird combinations, right? But they work. I mean, just look at that happy combination right there. See, my goal today is not to tell you to stop using Excel and to start using Tableau. No, because Excel is a phenomenally versatile spreadsheet. You already know what Excel is great at, so please keep using it for those purposes. Now, my goal today is to show you, all of you Excel ninjas out there, and there's a lot of you out there, what Tableau is great at, so that you can choose the best tool for the job at hand. All right? So what is Tableau great at? It's all about analytics. Tableau is focused, laser focused on analytics. It's all about analyzing your data, finding those nuggets of insights, sharing them out, and eventually teaching your entire organization to do the same exact thing for themselves. That's Tableau. So today, I'm going to show you how to tap into all of that analytical richness, all that analytical strength for yourself. This is the resource that I wish I had when I first got started last year. Are you all ready? All right, let's do it. So there's going to be two parts to this talk today. First, I'm going to show you how to get your data from Excel into Tableau. And we'll also show you how to replicate a few of the very common things that you come to rely on in Excel. Then, once we're in Tableau, I'm going to show you how to analyze data in some really cool and awesome ways, all right? Now, as I'm sure you're all aware, a good demo requires a great data set. And I had to be honest with everybody here. I was getting pretty nervous preparing for this talk because I wanted to find some really fun, interesting data to demo with, and I wasn't having much luck. Couldn't find anything. So the deadline's coming up. I'm down to wire. I had no data to demo with. So I was talking to a coworker of mine. She's really into backpacking, by the way. You might see her on Devs on Stage tomorrow. So I told her this. I'm like, look, I just can't do it anymore. I can't do another demo on bird strikes and restaurant health code violations. You got to help me out. So she's like, I got you covered. I got one word for you. And I'm like, what's that? And she's like, Bigfoot. I'm like, wait, what? Did I hear you right? The data's it's about big food? And she's like, no, you moron. Bigfoot. Like that elusive ape-like creature in the woods. So I'm like, oh, okay, I know who that is. Also known as Sasquatch. So just in case you're not aware, Bigfoot is like this tall, hairy, ape-like creature, wanders around in the wilderness, and he leaves behind these giant footprints for people to find. There's no substantiated evidence that Bigfoot actually exists, but that's definitely not due to lack of trying. So she pointed me to the BFRO, the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. I bet you didn't know they existed, but they do, all right? And they're totally legitimate. So they collect user-submitted sighting data of Bigfoot. So anytime someone's driving around and they see Bigfoot, or they're hiking up a mountain and they see Bigfoot, they tell BFRO about it. And this website's like a gold mine of comedy. I loved browsing through it. Here's like a sighting I just pulled out at random. I'll just paraphrase it. It's October, near Leavenworth, Washington. I've been there, by the way. My friend and I, we saw this dark figure along the road. It was like 7 to 8 feet tall, extremely hairy. It saw us, turned, and walked off into the woods. My friend and I, we looked at each other, high-fived, confirmed we just saw Bigfoot, best time of our lives. It was amazing. I can't make this stuff up. This website's full of it. I encourage you to check it out. Now, I happen to not be a cryptozoologist, but you know what? This reads like compelling evidence to me. So I was immediately hooked. I downloaded data, and that's what we're going to be working with today. Are you all ready to learn about Bigfoot? Let's do it. All right, so here's the data that I downloaded from BFRO. You can tell it's very legitimate. It's got the official logo, this like footprint thing, right? Very, very official. Bigfoot sighting data. So this is sighting data for a bunch of states in the US for the last decade, 2008 to 2018. So I'm going to show you now how to bring this data from Excel into Tableau. All right, so I got an instance of Tableau open here. Now there's two ways to bring spreadsheet data into Tableau. If your data came in as a CSV file, also known as a comma delineated file, you just hit text file here. That's just what we call it. But because this data came in as a full-fledged Excel workbook, I'm going to hit Microsoft Excel. And let me find it real quick, excuse me. All right, Bigfoot data short. Now, anytime I bring data into Tableau or I connect to data in Tableau, we always drop you into this data source window. Think of this as your staging area. This is your first opportunity to make sure that this data was brought in correctly, that nothing was lost in the translation. So let me just take a look here. You know what? That doesn't look quite right. Let me flip back to Excel, see what's going on here. So I definitely have state as my header. I got these years. But somehow, in Tableau, they ended up in the actual data on the second row. And then I got this weird F1 through F12 business going on. What's going on here? So here's the thing. Anytime you're dealing with a spreadsheet, it's, of course, very versatile. But inherent in that versatility is a potential for a lot of noise. In this case, by default, Tableau just reads everything that's on your spreadsheet verbatim. It just brings it all in, noise and all. So to combat that, we've invested in a feature called the data interpreter. And it's super simple to use. I just go over here and click a checkbox. This is just for spreadsheet data. And just like that, data is brought in. It's like magic. So Tableau is deploying a variety of smart algorithms to find the actual data table that's embedded within the Excel spreadsheet. And we're looking for a nice, let's see if I can make a rectangle, nice rectangular contiguous piece of data within your spreadsheets. If you want to see what it's actually doing, you can click to review the results here. And this is going to hydrate a new Excel workbook. So there's a legend here, but basically if I flip over to the data, what you're looking for is just colored cells. So you see here, Tableau has found the actual data table embedded here. It's got the header, it's got the body of data. Ignore the heading though. It correctly deduced that Bigfoot sighting data, that was just a heading speaking for what this data was about, but it's not actually part of my data. So Tableau is smart enough to get rid of it. Okay, let's go back. All right, I think this data looks pretty good. So I'm going to go on to the sheet here. I'm going to start my analysis. So I want you to focus your attention on this left-hand panel right there. That's where all your data is. And there's two kinds of data in Tableau. Dimensions at the top, measures on the bottom. Now dimensions, those are your categories. They're like your string type data. Easy way to think about that is if you think of a bar chart, dimensions are going to be defining what each of those bars represent. Then we have our measures. Measures are the numerical aspects to your data. So they're going to be what informs how tall each of those bars are. Okay? So we're going to build a nice little data table, and I'm going to see if I can replicate what I just had in Excel in Tableau. Let me just close this thing real quick. Okay. So I can just take my state data here and drag it out and put it in either rows or columns, doesn't matter. And I just get this nice little data table. I can also bring in data by just double-clicking. So let me just double-click on 2008 to bring that in. 2009, 2010, 2011, 12, 13, 14. Oh my gosh, this is really annoying. It's a good thing I only had 10 years of data. If I had 50 years of data, this would be unmanageable. And the thing is, I don't necessarily want to work with my years in this fashion. I don't want each year to be its own siloed thing, right? I want to see my years as a continuous flowing thing. That's what time actually is. So this is kind of unwieldy to work with. I'm going to go clear out what I just did. We're going to go back in the data source and see how we can massage the data so that it can work better for my analysis. Okay. So we have this handy-dandy clear sheet button over here. You're going to see me hit this a lot today. All right, so back to the data source I go. So what's going on here? Now, the data right now is laid out in a very common format that you're going to see all over in spreadsheet data. And this is what we call the crosstab format. It's very human readable, very clear, but it's not very machine readable. And what Tableau is expecting, it's expecting more of a database format. And if I think about this data set and what it contains, what it represents, there's only three things in it: states, years, and sightings. Just those three. So if I were to store this in a database, I would just have those three columns. So what I want to do now is I want to transition from this crosstab format to a database format so that Tableau can work with it a lot better. Now, if I take a look at my data, what needs to change? Well, so I got 10 columns of years here, 2008 to 2018. And I want to just consolidate that down to just 1 year. One column of years, right? I can do that just by right-clicking and selecting Pivot. So for all you ninjas out there, this is the transpose function. So I pivot it. There you go. I got my years, sightings, and states. This looks better. I can rename my columns. So I just call that year. Call this the number of sightings. I got my state there too. Now, anytime I'm manipulating my data, I'm renaming things, or I'm pivoting things, none of this gets written back to your Excel spreadsheets. Tableau is one way. It's read-only. It never writes back to the data source. So your workbook is safe. We'll never touch it. So this is looking pretty good. We go back to my sheet here. And now if I drag out my state, double-click on year, double-click on sightings, and there you go. I've now reconstituted, rehydrated what I had in Excel. Now it's in Tableau. It's kind of boring, though, because it's, I didn't bring this data into Tableau just to look at it in the same fashion that I could have in Excel. I want to take advantage of all the great visits that Tableau offers. And one thing I'm really excited about is a map. That's not something I can easily get in Excel. So I've got state data right here. And now I want to transition this from a table into a map showing all of my sightings per state. So let me go ahead here, clear out my sheet once more. Now, instead of dragging my state out to rows or columns, let me just let that go. I'm going to double-click on it. And when I do that, Tableau automatically defaults me to the best viz that can represent this state data, which of course is a map. Let me bring in my sightings. And now I'm going to use the pen and zoom tool here. I'm going to zoom into the US. I'm looking for my data. Where is my data? It's not here. Please bear with me. I'm going to clear out this sheet. We'll go back to the data source and see what's wrong. OK. This is also something that's very common. Again, data can come in all forms. And what BFRO did is they gave me not only the state name, but also the state abbreviation. And one thing I learned about working with maps in Tableau is that we do something called geocoding. That's where we match the actual names that are in this data, like Alabama and Alaska, to the actual geographic entities of the state of Alabama and the state of Alaska. So the fact that there was both the full name and the abbreviation here, that unfortunately confused that matching process, so we weren't able to get our map. But I can change that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just split out the full name from the abbreviation here. I'm going to create 2 extra columns. I can do that very simply by just right-clicking and selecting Split. And again, Tableau is very smart. It's helping me here. Tableau can find a variety of delimiters, commas, periods, parentheses, etc. And it'll do the splitting for you automatically. Now that I got these 2 columns, I don't actually need my abbreviations. So let me just go ahead, right-click, and just hide that. I'm going to rename this to just state. All right, let's see if this works now. So let me double-click on state. All right, this is working a lot better. I didn't even have to zoom in. Double-click on sightings. All right, so I got my map. It's looking pretty good. Except these dots are kind of hard to read, right? So these dots, their sizes exemplify how many sightings have taken place in each state. But they're very difficult right now to compare against one another. But I can change that. So this little guy right here, the marks card, believe it or not, this little control affects virtually everything that you see in this viz. So I have a pill here representing my total number of sightings. And right now, that's assigned to the size dimension. It's informing the size of each dot. But I can just simply drag that and drop in the color and use color to emphasize the data. So there you go. So now, the darker the color, the more sightings there's been per state. So you can see here, 3 states that have the most sightings. It's going to be Washington, Illinois, and Florida. That's pretty cool. Didn't expect Bigfoot to be in Florida, to be honest. Now, I actually contend that there's something wrong with this data. Here's my hypothesis. I think it needs to be normalized by population. You know, if you had a lot of sightings in California with its 40 million people, I think that is, that's probably not as meaningful as if you had a lot of sightings in my home state of Washington, where there's only 8 million people. So what I want to do now is I want to normalize this data by population. I want to calculate my sightings per capita. The problem is, BFRO didn't give me this data, but luckily I sourced my own. So I went to Wikipedia and got this nice little table of my state populations. I believe this is from the 2010 census, so it's pretty recent, good enough. So I'm going to show you how to bring in this data. So I'm going to go back to Tableau here. And before I showed you that I used a file open dialog, but now I can also just drag and drop it in. Simple, you can just drop it anywhere. We're all about drag and drop here. All right, back in my staging area, I'm going to take a look at this data. Looks good to me. So now I'm going to build my sightings per capita. I'm going to clear this out. I'm going to build it as a text table so that you can follow along really easily. So first thing you'll notice is I have two pieces of data here. I got my original sightings data from BFRO, and now I have my state populations data from Wikipedia. I can actually use the data between them interchangeably. So let me take my state here out, drop that in, get my table, bring in my sightings, move down to the Wikipedia data, and bring in population. It's just like magic. These two completely different workbooks were just brought together here. Now, if I was in Excel, here's why I would use my mad VLOOKUP skills to find two common columns between these two different pieces of data and use that to stitch the table together, right? Well, that's exactly what Tableau did for me, except it did it automatically. I didn't have to write any formulas. And you can see here, if you notice, this little red link icon here next to state. So Tableau automatically scanned all the columns across both pieces of data, and it found the best fitting column to use to bring those two pieces of data together. We call this a blend. Simple swap of terminology. You know as VLOOKUP, this is basically a blend in Tableau. And if there were multiple good candidates, Tableau will find the best one. And of course, you can stipulate one, whichever one you want to use manually as well. Okay, so we got our sightings, we got our population. Now I want to calculate my sightings per capita. If I was in Excel, I'd create a new column, and I would write a formula, right? I'm going to do the same thing in Tableau. Okay, so I'm going to right-click. Anywhere in the schema window, I'm going to create a calculated field. So calculated field, it sounds a little scary, but basically that's the same thing as a formula. So I'm going to call this sightings per capita. And it's going to be the total number of sightings divided by, sorry, one sec. See, it has validation to tell me that I did a mistake. All right, sightings per capita. And it's the total number of sightings per state divided by the population of each state. You can see it's got some nice autocomplete, saves me from having to type all that. All right. So I know this is going to be a very small number because I'm literally dividing like 27 sightings by 5 million people. So I need to adjust the number format. So I can just go here into my context menu here. I'm going to declare a custom number format with a lot of decimal places. We'll do 8 decimal places. So now I'm ready to bring that in. Now this is a very small number, really hard to read, really hard to decipher, right? But just like with the map, I can use color to my advantage. So this measure values pill here, this represents all 3 of these numerical columns that I've got here. My sightings, my population, and my sightings per capita. So I can take this, I can drag it into color as well. By default, the color goes to the text, not the easiest to read, but I can go and divert that color to the background. And by default, the color is just using one legend, and that legend speaks for all 3 of these columns. It goes from like 0 to 38 million, not really helping anything. But I can change that. So I can go back to this pill here. I can say use a separate legend for each column. I can make this look nice. So I can go to my population legend. I can make this one green. I can make my size per capita orange. Make the columns a little wider. There you go, looks pretty good, right? Now the numbers are popping. Oh wait, right, I was supposed to make a map, sorry. It's real easy. Double click on state, take my size per capita, bring it into color, and there you go. So let's take a look here. See if the map looks any different. So now once we've normalized the population, we can see that Illinois and Florida, they're more closer to the middle of the pack. The Washington, Montana, Idaho, they're really hopping with Bigfoot activity here. So that's pretty cool. Pacific Northwest, it's very known for Bigfoot, right? So that makes sense. But there's a surprise here. West Virginia. So you can see here, West Virginia, that didn't pop at all before I normalized. But now that I've calculated my size per capita, it's filled with Bigfoot activity. Who would have thought? You know, if I was looking for Bigfoot, maybe I'll go to West Virginia instead. It's so strange. All right, let's take a breather here, and we'll recap what we learned. All right. So when it comes to getting your Excel data into Tableau, probably the most important piece of advice I can give you is just don't be afraid to undo your work. Don't be afraid to clear out what you just did. I mean, you saw me hitting that clear sheet button constantly. Whenever I ran into trouble on the sheet, cleared it out, I went back to my data source, I massaged the data a little bit more, and then went back at it. And it's so easy for me to do this because it doesn't cost me a whole lot to get back to where I was. I'm just drag and dropping, I'm double clicking. The transaction cost of that is really low. We also have a very long undo stack in Tableau. I will probably bet you money that you cannot exhaust it in your regular usage. So don't feel like you're ever committed to what you built. Don't feel like you're ever just going to get stuck and you have to live with what you have. Clear it out, see what you need to do with your data, try again. Second, you saw me flipping back and forth between my sheet and my data source window constantly. And I said that the data source, that was a great staging area because you want to make sure your data was brought in correctly. But you're also going to continue using it throughout your analysis because chances are you're not going to know how specifically you need to massage that data. You gotta have to kind of go through some trial and error, run into a few issues, and only then will you know, oh, I need to use this or I need to rename that. Speaking of massaging data, pivot and split, those are going to be your best friends. They're like your bread and butter. Again, spreadsheets are enormously flexible, but inherent in that flexibility is just the potential for data to come in all sorts of shapes and forms. So pivot and split, I use those two every day when I work with spreadsheet data. As you saw, we blended multiple data sources together. And that's simply just an automatic VLOOKUP that Tableau executes on your behalf. And finally, we create this new field with a calculation. A bunch of scary sounding words in there, but if I just rephrase this in Excel terms, I would say we created a new column with a formula. That's all it is. Fact of the matter is, if you can write formulas in Excel, then you can for sure write a calculated field in Tableau. How are y'all doing? All right, are you ready to analyze some data now? All right, this will be a lot more interesting because I brought the whole enchilada. All right, you're in for a treat. Okay, this is the full data set that I got off of BFRO. All right, there's a lot to take in here, so I'll just walk you through it real quick. So first off, did you know there were 2 classes of sightings? It's very scientific. So class A That's where you see Bigfoot in the flesh. In Class B, that's where you hear Bigfoot, or it could be a large bird, but you're convinced it's Bigfoot, right? There's the actual date of the sighting. We have county level data now, so we're one level lower. Before we just had state data, but now we can get even deeper into the geography here. And finally, we have this description. It's a complete goldmine. This is a summary of all the verbatim reports written by the people who are actually there. So now, I want to bring this in to Tableau. I'm going to show you how I will go about analyzing it. All right, so I got another instance of Tableau open here. Let's connect to Excel, bring in this data. Everything looks good to me, so let's proceed. We'll go on to the sheet. So anytime I'm analyzing data, I'm not just thinking about how I will go about finding these nuggets of insights. I'm also thinking about how do I best share out what I found? How do I best share out the fruits of my labor? And when I share out with folks, how do I let them ask a few questions of their own? Questions that I myself may not have thought of. So now I've been working with this data for a while, preparing for this demo, browsing BFRO like literally every day. I've been living and breathing this Bigfoot lifestyle for a while. So I think I might want to go and look for Bigfoot myself one of these days. And just knowing my friends, I think they'll really want to get in on the action too. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look for where I should be going to look for Bigfoot. I want to know when I should look for Bigfoot. And then I want to share it out with all my friends. And maybe, because my friends are a little bit picky, I'll let them change a few aspects of my analysis so that they can ask a few questions of the data themselves. So I'll show you how to do all that. All right, let me just close that. So my first question is, where should I go looking for Bigfoot? So before we had the state data, so I'm going to drag that out and make a little table. And now I'm really excited because I got this county data too, so let me bring that out. Let me double click on my number of records, that's the number of sightings. I have a null state here. Data is not too clean, it's okay. Just select it, hit exclude, and now it's filtered out. So here I have my sightings per state and county. And there's over 1,000 counties in this data set. It's really unmanageable. So first thing I want to do is I want to whittle away all of those low activity counties, the ones that have like 1 or 2 sightings in the last decade. I just want to focus on the high activity counties, the counties that have had a lot of Bigfoot activity in these past years. Easy way I can do that is to create another calculated field. So let me go ahead and right click, calculate field. I'm going to call this the activity level. So if the total number of sightings per county is greater than, let's do 5, then it's high activity. Otherwise, it's low activity. There we go. So I'm going to bring this into my table, put it in front of state. And now you can see very easily, I whittle away the lion's share of the counties, like 99% of the counties. I'm left with just those high activity counties that have had more than 5 sightings this past decade. But you know what, I said my friends are picky, so they're probably going to want to adjust that threshold that I chose. I chose 5. They might say, no, it should be 4 or 6 or 10. So how do I let my friends change that part of my analysis? How do I let them ask that little question for themselves? I can do that using a parameter. So right-click in the schema window again, create a parameter. That's another scary sounding term, but basically think of this as a variable that either I or my friends get to change. So I'm going to call this the activity threshold. It's going to be an integer. I'm going to default it to 5 because that's the threshold I chose. Click OK. So here's my parameter. And what's really awesome about it is I can show a control for it. And this control lets me enter whatever value I want. And when I publish this up to the web, and I share a link out to all my friends, they'll all be able to use this control to change where that threshold should lie. Now, of course, it's not going to do anything right now by itself. I got to hook it into the calculation first. So let's do that. So I'll go to the activity level here. I'll edit the calculation. And so we're saying if the total number of sightings per county is greater than the activity threshold, only then is it a high activity county. Okay, so if I change this to a 4, a lot more counties came in. If I change this to a 6, it's a lot fewer. And what I really love about Tableau is that what I built here, my calculations, my parameters, all of this is transferable. It's not just for a data table. It actually works across all of the vizzes that Tableau supports. So now I'm going to show you my absolute most favorite feature in Tableau. And that feature is Show Me. So Show Me is comprised of the 24 most commonly used vizzes in Tableau. Tableau is capable of generating a whole ton more, but these are the top 24. And Show Me is smart. It only highlights the ones that I can actually use with the data I've got in play on my sheet. So it's looking at my activity level, my states, my counties, my sightings, and saying these ones I've got enabled, they're the ones that are going to be able to best represent your data. And you see the one that's outlined in red, the map. Show Me is telling me this is the best way that you can use to visualize this data. So thanks, Show Me. I think I'll take your suggestion. And there you go. And you can see everything carried over. Nothing was lost. So all those orange dots, those are all my low activity counties. The blue dots, those are my high activity counties. And if I change my threshold again, let me just use a threshold of 10. I'm a very discerning Bigfoot hunter. Look at that. I'm left with just 3 counties. Okay. So now I know where I should go looking for Bigfoot. I want to know when I should go looking for Bigfoot. So I'm going to create a new sheet here. So I got this date field here, and that's the date of each individual sighting. So I got to imagine there's got to be some patterns in this data that I can use to inform when I should go looking for Bigfoot, right? So I want to select date here. I want to bring in my number of sightings. And you know what? I want to bring in class as well, because I want those Class A sightings. I don't want to just hear Bigfoot. I want to see Bigfoot. So I'm going to go to my Show Me over here. Another great thing about Show Me is it's not just looking at the data I've got in play on my sheet. It's also looking at what I've got selected in my schema window. So a great way of using Tableau when you're just getting started is just select the data you care about. Select the data you want to use. Open up Show Me and see what it's got for you. So here I'm going to use Show Me to create a nice continuous line chart. And this is the sightings year over year, the trend for Class A's and Class B's. A's in blue, B's in orange. And what's cool about this is this isn't the only way that I have to look at this data. So I have my pill here representing the total number of sightings. I can use what we call a table calculation. You can write your own, but there's a quick set of table calculation at your disposal here. So you can do a running total, for instance, of all the sightings over the last decade. You can do a year-over-year difference. And it doesn't really fit, but if you have stock data or any kind of financial or sales data, you can even do like a compound growth rate. It's pretty cool. But I'm going to just clear this out and go back to my original view, because I think this is still the best way for me to look at this data to predict when in the future I should go looking for Bigfoot. So the trend is decidedly downwards, and it's going down pretty smoothly, which is not good news for me. But this data is highly aggregated. It's at the year level. As you saw, I had individual days in my data set. So I can drill into time here. So I've got this year pill, and there's this plus next to year. I can just hit that and drill into quarters. And if I keep going, I'll eventually land into the months, the weeks, and the days. I'm going to stop right here because I see a lot of ups and downs already. So this is pretty interesting. It's definitely not as smooth as before. So I think I can use all of these patterns to predict when I should go looking for Bigfoot. So I'm going to head on over to my analytics tab here. And I'll start with a trend line, because that's something I'm familiar with from Excel. So let me go ahead and drag that trend line out. I'm going to use a linear trend line. You know what? Not sure what I was thinking. This fit is horrible. Let me back out. Let me try a forecast instead. So I add a forecast. Oh, that looks a whole lot better. So as you can see, Tableau did a bunch of math. It crunched a lot of numbers. And it forecasted out the trend of my class A and B sightings through the year 2020. And that's based off of all the seasonality patterns for the last decade. If you look at the blue line there, that's the mean of where we expect that trend of sightings to continue through 2020. And the blue range, that's one standard deviation above and below the mean. So if you think back to stats class, what that means is we have a 95% confidence that the continued trend of those Class A sightings is going to be somewhere within that range. So that's pretty cool, right? Now, what's the best time to go looking for Bigfoot? Probably here. Oh, you know what? That's 2018 Q4. That's right now. I'm at TC, so I can't go. But let me see. Next best time is probably, okay, 2019 Q4. So that's this time next year. I can go ahead and annotate this. I can use a rich text header. I can just say, save the date. So I share this with my friends. They'll be able to see this point, and they'll know that this is what we're gonna roll out and go find Bigfoot. Now, what about the bees? You see that range is huge, right? It even goes negative. It makes no sense. That's because we didn't observe a whole lot of seasonality patterns in the bees. So I can tell right away, based on just how big that range is, that this forecast is not trustworthy. So I just discard it, don't need it. But I can tell the A's are extremely trustworthy because the range is so small. All right, now I know where I should go looking for Bigfoot and when I should go looking for Bigfoot. But there's still one crucial piece of data that I have not analyzed yet, and that is the description. Now this description, this is a gold mine information. We got people saying, I saw Bigfoot by the lake. Someone saying, no, it's by the river. I was driving, I was hiking, it was daytime, it was nighttime. I mean, there's so much information here. I want to be able to analyze this. If I was serious about this, I would get out Alteryx, I would get out R, because they have a lot of great text analysis packages. But for today, I just want to show you something quick that I can just do with Excel and Tableau. So I'm going to build a word cloud. In order to build my word cloud, I actually have to start in Excel first. See? It's all full circle. I told you, they're like a happy pairing, right? All right. So what I want to do with my word cloud is I want to chop up these sentences into individual words. And then I want to count the frequency of those words to build my word cloud. I can use Excel's feature, thank you, the text and columns feature here, which is designed just for this. So I'm going to chop up these sentences by delimiters. And let me just select all of these. So I click Finish. And there you go. I've now broken up these sentences into individual words and created a whole bunch of new columns in Excel. And I need to give each column a column header so they'll work well in Tableau. So I'm just going to call this text1. And then I'm going to take this and just drag it out because I need a lot of headers. I generate a lot of columns. Let me just let's do 30 headers, because I don't think there's any sentence with more than 30 words here. So let me save that. So going back to Tableau, once again, I'm just going to drag and drop this data in. All right, we're back in our staging area. So let's put what we learned to the test. I have 30 columns of words that I want to bring and consolidate into one column words so I can count their frequency. What do I use? Awesome, yes, pivot. Okay. So let me select text 1 through text 30. Right click, pivot. And there you go. I'll rename this. I'll call it the actual text. There's a lot of nulls in here. Don't worry. We're just going to take the top 100 words. So let me create a new sheet here. All right. So first off, I'm going to filter on the text that we just created because I just want the top 100 words. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can filter, but I'm going to use top, which is a great way to do this. So I'm going to say I want the top 100 of my words by the count of those frequencies. Click OK. So now I'm going to build my word cloud. And word cloud is not popular enough to be in Show Me, so I'm going to have to just use the marks card to do that. And it'll be fun because you actually get to see it's actually quite intuitive. So first off, I'm building a word cloud, so I should probably put something in the text. And there you go. These are actually the top 100 words. Now I want these words to be bigger the more frequent they are. So now let me take the text and drop that into size. Nothing happened. Why is that? Well, as you recall, text is right now a dimension, right? So if I open this up, you can see it's acting as a dimension. There's nothing numerical about it, not yet anyways. But I can easily convert it to measure. I need to give it some sort of numericalness, if that is a term. And I'm going to just use count here, because I want the count of these words. All right, so here's where Tableau might be getting a little bit too smart. It's saying, well, if you want to count these words, I suggest a tree map. And I'm like, no, no, Tableau. Just give me my word cloud. And there it is. And just like before, I can make the larger words pop a little bit more by using color. So let me drag this onto color. And again, if I was serious about this, I would use a common English language dictionary. I would get rid of all these like uhs and does and ands and everything. But again, today we're just doing something super simple, super quick. So I'm just going to exclude some of these. And the possible, near, and citing, these words appear frequently. So we're going to exclude those as well, because we want that second layer of words to pop in. Here we go. So we got things like lake, daylight, motorist, vocalizations, road. Really cool, right? So we got all these words here. So now if I was sharing this out with my friends, because this is for the entire country, I can just give them a filter on state, and then they can use all these checkboxes to filter it down to just the states they care about and see what words are popping there. But you know what? What's the fun in that? We're at TC. We're going to finish strong. OK, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to build a map of my sightings, and I want to put this word cloud into the tooltip. My friends have never seen anything like this. It's going to knock their socks off. All right, let's do this. So you see me build this before. So let me double-click on state here. Let me bring in my number of my sightings. Just double-click on that. Put that into color. OK, so you've seen this one before. Zoom into the lower 48. Now, I already have a tooltip. And this tooltip is dynamically generated based off of the data that I've got in play on the sheet. But I can modify it. So again, I go back to my marks card, double-click on tooltip. And this is another rich text editor. So there's an insert menu here. I can insert a whole bunch of rich content, rich dynamic content. But something else I can insert is other sheets. So sheet 3, that was my word cloud. So let me select that, bring this in. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so you can all see. OK, let me take a sip of water for finale here. All right, if we're looking for Bigfoot in Washington, what pops in Washington? We have people hearing vocalizations by the lake. OK, if I'm looking for Bigfoot in Oregon, what pops in Oregon? We have campers hearing strange vocalizations in the national forest. OK, that's pretty cool. All right, if I'm looking for Bigfoot in California, what pops in California? We have people having encounters with Bigfoot by the lake in California. They're not just hearing Bigfoot, they're encountering Bigfoot. So you know what? Forget those counties that I found earlier. This time next year, I'm going to pack up my friends. we're going to go on a road trip to California, and we're going to have our very own encounter with Bigfoot by the lake. All right. So this is, thank you. Just a bit of fun to finish up the session, but I hope that this underscores just the sheer amount of analytical power that's under your fingertips. So let's recap what we just learned, and then we'll close this out, all right? All right. When it comes to analyzing data in Tableau, most important advice I can give you is just to experiment. See, whenever a new piece of data crosses my desk, I don't know what it is, I have no idea how to analyze it, I have no idea what makes it tick. The only way I can figure that out is through experimentation, trial and error. And Tableau makes it so easy. Again, I'm just dragging and dropping, double-clicking, I'm using Show Me. It's super simple. You saw me use calculations and parameter to differentiate my counties between high and low activity. And my parameter allowed my friends to change where that threshold was. Now, in our everyday business lives, we're constantly dealing with things like metrics and KPIs. And calculations and parameters, they're going to be your go-tos for that. Because not only do they let you calculate a number crunch, what those metrics and KPIs are, but they also let your users change some aspects of your analysis so that they can ask some questions for themselves. And most importantly, so they don't have to bug you. Show Me. Show Me is my favorite feature. You know, some people, they get pretty sophisticated with Tableau, and they're like, oh, you know, I don't use Show Me anymore. I just use the marks card. But you know what? I'm a year into this. I work on this product, and I still use Show Me every day. It will show you the way. Finally, the Analytics tab. That's your crystal ball. It allows you to predict the future and so much more. Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. Clustering, a bunch of statistical packages. Even though the math behind all of it is very complex, the actual experience of using it isn't. If you can understand the forecasting that I just showed you, then you can understand everything that's underneath that tab. So I encourage you to check it out and, of course, experiment, right? And of course, if you ever run into trouble or if you ever get stuck, we have a variety of resources at your disposal. We have the forums. We have blogs by our partners, our Zen masters. Your Tableau team is there to help as well. You know, case in point, I had no idea how to build a word cloud before I prepared for this demo. But I got online, I found this great blog by Dave Andrade. He runs the improvisation blog, get it? And he showed me how, and it was really simple. So take advantage of all the resources. Whew. Covered a lot of ground today, right? See, I told you. All right, I just have one last thing to say to you all, and that's this. Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here. It's been a real honor and privilege to be able to share what I've learned this past year with you all. So I hope that each and every one of you found something that you found really exciting, something you can take home with you, and hopefully something that will make your own Tableau journey just that much more rewarding. So thanks.